Okay, I'm going to call the Zoning Board of Appeals for September 9th to order. The Zoning Board tonight is our regular membership of Member Steve Bernard, Fire Chief Michael Williams, Member Craig Pina, Member Steve Lianis, and myself, Chair Kenneth Galligan. The Building Inspector is Frank Plouffe, Jim Plouffe, and our Recording Secretary tonight is Beth Lacombe. I would ask anybody that's in the room here tonight or making a presentation to silence their phones. Either shut the phone off or put it on silence. Prior to the start of the meeting, I am going to read a document in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 38 and 20, relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency. Tonight's meeting, public meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals will be open to the public. However, the public and all applicants are encouraged to participate remotely. Prior to the start of the hearing, is there anyone here tonight that wants to withdraw prior to the start of the hearing? So the petitioner that's before us, are you ready to proceed tonight? No, you're not going to withdraw? No, okay. So the format of the meeting is the petitioner will present their case to the board, and when the petitioner has finished the presentation, I'll ask the board members if they have any questions of the presenter relative to the presentation that was given. Following that, I will then open it up to public discussion, and I will ask for anyone that wants to speak in favor. When that has been concluded, I will ask for anyone that wants to speak in opposition. When that portion is completed, I'll ask if there are any public officials that want to be heard on the issue. Following that, I will close that portion of the hearing, and I will then open it up for deliberations from the board. At that point, the board will deliberate based upon the information that has been presented at the hearing. In order for a petition to pass, it requires an affirmative vote of at least 4 members. So a 5-0 vote in favor will pass, a 4-1 vote will pass, a 3-2 vote will not pass. So each case will be deliberated and it will be decided at the conclusion of that case rather than at the end of the evening. Before we hear the first case, there is some housekeeping that we need to straighten out relative to the board. On the case for 28 Petronelli Way, we have discovered there was a scrivener's error in the notes that were taken. And the original document said that the gym and ring would be retained as part of the build out of the building. It should correctly say the elements of the original gym space previously used by boxing legend Marvin Hagel will attempted to be preserved. So that was a scrivener's error. We are going to take a vote tonight to straighten out that scrivener's error. I am going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Bernard.
Yes.
Mr. Lanus. Mr. Pina.
Yes.
Chief Williams. Chairman Galligan.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, 5 in the affirmative, -0 in the negative.
Okay, the scrivener's error is addressed and corrected. So I'm going to give this to you. So the first case to be heard tonight is petition of Fenton Associates LLC, 135 Elliott Street, Brockton, Mass. For a variance from Article 3, Section 27-13A and 2711, subsection 3, to construct 3 residential units and requires relief from frontage, width, and side setback standards on Lot B, and relief for the side yard setback for Lot C in an R2 zone located at 135 Elliott Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Clerk. Attorney John McCoskey, representing Fenton Associates LLC, which is John Chanel. With me also is Scott Farrier from Digital Home Engineering. And, as the application indicates, we're seeking a variance to construct 3 residential townhouses on Lot B, as shown on the plan. I don't know whether the plan, but I'm sure we'll have to be Lot B is this property is in an R2 zone, residential zone, which allows 3 units by right.
I have to interrupt for
Okay.
1 second.
Lot
My
B-
audio.
Oh, all right. You're doing one thing on this screen and something different up there. Lot B contains the requisite number of square feet, 12,292 in an R2 zone, has 100 feet of frontage, and really the only thing we're lacking here is under section 13A, 2713A on lot width, because we need it to carry 100 feet back, and it doesn't do that. But I'm sorry, 125 feet back, and so we have 3 residential units, and to the right on lot A, we have a conforming lot, meets all of the requirements. So lot A is not in the picture. However, it does play into the available parking and what we have on the site. Also, lot C, if you take a close look at it, lot C has frontage on Elliott Street and goes all the way back and includes the existing warehouse, which is Banner Systems, owned by Fenton Associates and run by Mr. Chanel. They provide high-grade safety products, cleaning products, sanitizers to hospitals all over New England. What we're looking at here is we have six units and a total of 18 parking spaces. So we have more than enough parking. We do need a variance for lot C because of the fact that it's in an industrial zone and technically needs to meet the setback requirement, which it doesn't do. So that's, quite frankly, I would think a de minimis issue before the board tonight. Being in an R2 zone, and historically, by the way, the board a couple of years ago granted a similar project right across the street for Mr. Savino. How many units was that? 9. That was 9 units on slightly different size, but close to this. Mr. Chanel, through his LLC, owns approximately a total of 8 acres through here, going all the way back to the train track. And so he owns a lot of land that abuts the tracks. One of the interesting things is that this is an industrial use. The existing building now, probably in a few years to come, that will not be the continued use, because what we're finding is, what Mr. Chanel is finding is that travel across back and forth Brockton with trucks, he'd rather be closer to the highway, as would any business that has, that uses trucks for their delivery. This lot is obviously, this whole parcel is obviously of unusual shape because it has frontage on Elliott Street, but then drops way down into the back, and probably is not a shape of any other lot in the area. It also is abutted by Trout Brook, which is on the right side here of the plan. And on the left-hand side, there's a significant city sewer easement. So you couldn't expand Lot B into that area what has the city sewer easement. I don't think anything's going to be built upon that. So what we're asking for is 3 lots on a lot that has sufficient, 3 homes on a lot that has sufficient square footage and frontage. And quite frankly, the 2713A, I'm not quite sure if it really is intended to be for an R2 zone, but just for safety, we're asking the board to grant their relief from that, because we always do. And I think the board understands that it's difficult in those R2 zones to have a lot that even does comply with the section 2713A. You have what the townhouses look like? Okay. Submitted with the plans is a scale of the actual townhouse building, and they're of how many bedrooms? 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and they would comport with other properties in the area. There's many multifamily homes in this area. It would fit within the area, and as I say, most of it we can do by right, but we just need the board's relief for under 2713A and on the setback for Lot C. Part of the parking will be on Lot C, and the intent is to create an easement, a permanent easement, so that parking will always be available. I mentioned the fact that we have the sewer easement in Trout Brook, which create a hardship on the property, limits the area of the property that can be used. And we would respectfully request that we meet the requisite standards of the variance, unusual shape, size, soil conditions, topography, and the hardship because of the location of those 2 things, being the river and the sewer easement. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
Attorney McCluskey, I'm a little confused on numbers here. Are you looking for approval tonight for units 2A, B, and C, or all 5 units?
We're looking for approval tonight on Lot B.
Okay, so just unit 2A, B, and C.
Yeah, B and C, because Lot A is by right.
Okay, so we're not discussing
Lot
Lot A. Okay, tonight is all about Lot B. Okay, my other question is, so on each of these 3 units, are they all 3 2-family?
No, sir. The 3 units on Lot B are 3 single-family units.
Okay, so
Lot A, the MG westerly is a single-family unit, and the larger building would be a 2-family up and down.
All right,
Each
so
of the buildings.
some of these plans for unit A, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, I'm sorry, yes.
because I'm confused by the two doors.
That one you're looking at right now for the end unit, the two-family unit.
Okay, the unit we're not discussing tonight. Okay, thank you. That's all right. Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions from the board? I have a question relative to lot A. You're saying you have by right the ability to build on that lot.
Yes, we need 100 feet of frontage.
Lot A. You're saying you have by right the ability to build on lot.
Area. And we have the lot width.
Right, so what you're telling us is if the lot itself might, and that is created, then the lot is.
What I should have told you is that we've been to the planning board and we received preliminary subdivision approval with the condition.
Right, so telling us is the design that lot is created, then lot is.
So it owns the whole thing. Correct.
Okay, but right now, there's one, and the intent is, so if those lots are created, what you're telling us is that lot A is
Lot A is
in
essentially
conformance, so
a lot.
you don't have to ask for anything for that. Sound is terrible. I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Lot A is a Form A lot. You could get two tin cans and a string.
Okay. So on this is terrible. All right, so now you're asking for relief from side yard setback on
For the
the
side yard setback on lot,
side yard setback you request.
I believe we meet the side yard setback on lot B.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, so lot B, it's just the lot width. That's the only thing we're missing on lot B is the 125 foot lot width.
As you know, all you need in an R2 is 100 feet of frontage, but now we've got this 2713A, which says we need 125.
So if this were to be approved, correct, it will be 8 feet between and the parking that would be created.
And about 50 feet from
Correct.
proposed new building.
If this were to be approved, there will be feet between current industrial building and parking that would be needed for the unit. The existing building at 135 is on the front of that building.
We're going to change that. Yeah, there's access from the other side. Basically, nobody goes into those doors anyway. Everything goes on this side of the deliveries and everything are over here. Office areas over here. And there is a showroom in the front of the building, but it's really, the public does not come to this building.
Okay, I'm going to look at, here's the main entrance into the building, at least the public anyway, would be on the front of the building, which would face building. There were 9 cars on several different occasions when I went there, and I assume all of those 9 cars are employees of this building.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's going to change. Because remember, he owns about 8 acres of land. So those 9 cars, that area is going to disappear for parking for banner system.
So what,
Show us or explain to us what the flood FEMA elevation, floodplain to be filled. What's the story of that?
sure, Mr. Chairman, the floodplain associated with the Trout Brook, you have two different flood issues that's typically shown on the flood maps, either a graphical location or an elevation. In this case, we have an elevation. So the flood elevation is elevation 95. So anything that's under 95 on the property is in the floodplain. In order to build within that area, you have to file with Conservation Commission. So they allow you, DEP and the Conservation Commission allows you to fill in area in the floodplain as long as somewhere else on the property you dig out an equal volume. So if you fill in a 5-gallon bucket, you got to dig out a 5-gallon bucket somewhere else on the property. So, that lot itself, lot A, is within the conservation jurisdiction, would certainly require conservation filing.
So is that what I see at the bottom here? It's just a compensatory flood storage?
Exactly. That would be the area, basically the bathtub we would excavate back there to hold the volume that we're filling in the front.
So if there is flooding down there, does the water go over the banks onto this property that we built?
Mr. Chanel just said not in the 40 years he's been there, but according to FEMA with the numbers they have, yes. But in 40 years, it's never happened. But we have to base it on the flood maps, not on what's actually happened on the site.
So you're saying that the hardship on this piece of property is the shape of the lot?
Yes, the hardship, well, one, it's unique size, shape, and topography. One of the largest parcels in the area, it's got 114,156 square feet. Plus, on the property, there's a sewer easement, a city sewer easement that runs from the street all the way back through. So it consumes a substantial amount. That area would be just for parking. And then on the other side, there's Trout Brook, which I believe was reconfigured actually back in the 1800s or so. It didn't used to be there, but that's there. So that's a hardship as well as to the use of the land.
So the right of way on this lot C coming into Elliott Street, tell me how that's going to play into access to the industrial building on that.
Essentially the same as it does now, Mr. Chairman. Any trucks that come in for delivery use that existing entrance. That existing entrance is going to remain as it is today. We're not touching that entrance at all. So the trucks go all the way to the back. There's a loading dock on the side of the building, the westerly side of the building. They would still swing out into the parking area and back into the loading dock. And there's plenty of paving out there, but we're showing 22 parking spaces for the existing business. So I think we need 6 spaces. We're showing 22 for the business. So the trucks will just drive right through that area. It's more than 24 feet wide. The travelway is, the spaces meet the requirements on either side of that travelway.
And there'll be an easement for parking from lot C across lot B. So you can access it by easement and into lot A.
So the easement would allow people from lot B to park up in lot C.
Correct. Those 3 spaces at the closest to Elliott Street. You're correct. So it'll get them access off of Elliott Street, and then those 3 spaces would be earmarked for that lot, the lot B building. And more than likely they would, well,
Yeah, we have
I'm sorry.
We have 3 spaces for each unit. We only need 2. So, for example, on lot A, we've got 9 spaces here, and lot B, we've got the other 9 here and 3 or 4 over here.
On lot A, backing up against the industrial building, you indicated that there's 10 spots there. I only see 6.
It's definitely 6, Mr. Chairman. bad math on our end. It should be a 6, not a 10.
Isn't there 9?
So the numbers, the total numbers add up, but that 10 should be a 6. Then you add the 9 on lot B and the 3, get you your 18 spaces.
Right, any other questions from the board? I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor?
Good evening, Board. Shirley Azak, Ward 7, City Council. Right, where do you want me to go? In front of the machine, okay. Shirley Azak, Ward 7, City Councilor. I have seen this project for the past 6 years since it's come before you. This, and right now after the fire that happened a few weeks ago, I am a supporter of getting something done in this, at this location. It's the gateway to, it's a gate entrance to our city, and what's there now, what has been there for the past 10 years has been nothing but an eyesore. So I put my faith in the board that you make the right decision to support this project, and we need to really get something beautiful there. Oh, that's what I asked. Sorry, board. Oh, it's wrong project. So I came in, I was here for the Cartwright project, so I apologize. I recognize the attorney and.
She asked me and I'm deaf, so I.
Sorry.
Well, I was trying to figure out the fire.
Oh, that's right. Stopping grounds. But I will come back later once the other project's before you.
All right, before we end this portion, I need to understand, is Councilor Azak in favor or are you withdrawing from this?
I will withdraw from my statement from this because I'm not even, I didn't follow the whole project. Thank you.
Very good. Is there anyone else here that wants to speak in favor? Anybody on TV? Nobody on the TV. Okay, we're going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition? Will the attendees here for this case?
No, for these people.
Okay. All right, if there's no one here in opposition, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there any city officials that want to be heard on this issue? Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. And I will now open it up for deliberations from the board. No, I will. Before I do that, I have a letter that I'm going to read into the record. This is the 135 Main Street for 2 proposed lots. Are we good? Dear Mr. Zioli, at the planning board meeting held on March 3rd, 2020, the board discussed the above-named preliminary subdivision plan dated 2/5/2020 by J.K. Holmgren Engineering on behalf of Fenton Associates LLC. The board voted to allow the plan to proceed to file for the necessary relief with the Zoning Board of Appeals with the following conditions. The applicant needs to address the issues of potential filling of floodplain. The board also felt that the newly created residential lots must be screened from the existing industrial building. This is no way to be considered an approval by the planning board. If relief is granted by the ZBA, the applicant may move forward to the definitive application stage in the public hearing process. At that time, the issues of drainage, stormwater management, road layout, utilities, etc., will be formally discussed. Very truly yours, Craig Pina, acting chairperson. Okay, so I will open it up now for deliberations by the board. Board members?
Steve Bernard, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes. Unfortunately, I was having technical difficulty and missed a good portion of the presentation. However, reading before the meeting, the summary presented by council, and what I did hear, in addition to Mr. Pina's summary from the planning board, I would have no problem in moving this forward. But I would like to hear other deliberations from other board members before making a motion.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
in my opinion on this, I really don't see a problem with moving this forward, as long as they will proceed with the stipulations that we requested at the planning board. As council has stated, the business that's behind it may in the future be looking for a different location and a different use for the different than industrial use that's behind them. So I don't think that will be an issue with these residences in the future. I have no problem with letting this, with allowing this to move forward.
okay, any other members want to comment?
If there are no other members, I'd make a motion to grant.
Second,
Motion has been made and seconded to grant. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bernard. Mr. Bernard.
Yes. Grant.
Mr. Lannis.
Yes.
Chief Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Pina.
yes.
Chairman Galligan.
No.
Mr. Chair, that is 4 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative.
The vote is 4 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The petition is granted. I thought the understanding was the only people to be in the room were the people that are here for the particular case. All right, so anybody that's not, that's in here, that's not for this case should be waiting out in the hall.
Next case come up, and if you're not here for the second case, please wait in the hallway. If you're not here for the second case, please wait in the hallway. You're here for the second case? The 555 Cross Street? Yes. Okay. Is everybody here for the 555 Plain Street? All right, please spread out in the room.
You just close the door.
No, we have everybody's required, we can't close it for 2 reasons.
COVID, doesn't see what Wi-Fi is up there.
Close it, 1910.
Only if you want your, no, the Wi-Fi up there. I was always.
Okay. So there's a lot of hard.
If everybody can be quiet up here, if you want to talk, the air on, you go downstairs. Don't meeting right here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're live.
You ready for me?
No, I just gotta read it first. Right, the next petition, 20-63, the petition of Robert Jordan, 1325 Belmont Street, Brockton, Mass, for a variance from Article 4, Section 2725, to change the existing commercial use to seafood packaging commercial use in an R1C zone located at 555 Plain Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Clerk. Attorney John McCluskey. Family operation, which has been in business for over 32 years. Our two other sons, one son, Bob, just recently bought a home in Brockton. Bob, the father, lives over in Stoughton. And they also employ 2 or 3 other people who are also residents of Brockton. Jordan Brothers, as I mentioned, had been in business for 32 years. I think 17 or so of which were in Boston. Then they moved out to Brockton to Meadowbrook Road, which when they moved seemed like an attractive spot for them. As it turned out, Meadowbrook Road is inundated with car repair operations, clutter all over the place. But nonetheless, they've maintained a very clean and efficient operation. What does Jordan Brothers do? Jordan Brothers has 4 or 5 pickup trucks, F-350s. On the back, they have refrigerated units. And Bobby and Taylor show up in the morning, 6 o'clock or so. They go into the shop, which is presently congested. They've got storage of things all over the place. It's very hard to get around. The office space is very limited. Around 8:30 to 10 o'clock in the morning, after the auction in Boston at the Fish Pier, the trucks arrive. A couple of trucks will come. What do they have with them? They have pre-cut slabs of fish. No fish heads, no bones, no guts, just beautiful, freshly caught and cut fish in Boston. They bring it into their operation and they repackage or they recut the fish because their market is restaurants. And they've also got a niche in farmers market. So in farmers markets, if you travel through the South Shore up to Boston, you're going to see a Jordan Brothers representative at a farmers market on a Saturday morning. So the trucks come in, about a couple of them. So now we've got 2, maybe 4 trucks there in total. We've got 5 or 6 people, I think, in the operation itself. Taylor, I think, cuts fish and also runs the office. Her mother helps in the office as well. And as I say, this is a family-run small business. The other brother or son, whose name escapes me, he's a part-time Randolph Fire Department. He's on the fire department in Randolph and works part-time at Jordan Brothers. So they cut the fish and they package it either in cryovac packaging or small plastic with a plastic top container that you would see in a market, or which goes to the restaurant or to the farmer's market. The stuff that goes to the farmer's market will have a price on it. Stuff that goes to the restaurant won't have prices, obviously. and that comes out of the bag into the oven or into the pan. And when they cut the fish, first of all, they're buying fish that's clean. It doesn't have any bones. It doesn't, it's clean. They're buying top-notch fish. They got it on their tables in the cutting room. They cut it up, package it, clean everything down, and off they go. They're gone by about, probably most days, they're out of there by 1 o'clock. Bobby will stay to do some bookkeeping. The trucks all leave. There's even a gentleman that works for them. He also works for the Italian kitchen. You've probably seen the Jordan seafood truck there, and that's why it's there. So everybody takes the truck home at night. The traffic is very limited. This is the proposed property at 555 Plain Street is ideally suited for them. It's got plenty of room. They want to, as you can see on your plan, add a cooler in the back. And you say, well, is this going to be noisy? Well, if you go into the existing shop, it's noisy inside. The fans are going inside. But when you go out to the condenser outside, it's like an air conditioner. So the proposal here is to take the condensers in the back, protect them from, I know I went to my office one day on Main Street. So, you know, they'd be protected from thievery, and they'd be protected from a noise barrier point of view. At the proposed site, actually, one of the first things that I raised with Bobby Jordan when he contacted me, I said, people are going to be concerned about the smell. They're going to be concerned about the waste. He says, come over to the shop. I get to the shop. There's no smell. I look around. I say, where's your trash? There's no trash outside. They generate on a daily basis less than what a household would generate in trash. So they have a trash container, and I've already been in touch with the Board of Health in Brockton to modify what they would want to normally see for trash removal. They keep their trash inside and refrigerated. And if you look, I think some of you have been to the site. They have a barrel right here. And if you look inside, there's gloves from people handling the fish. There's paper toweling. And at the end of the day, even the little pieces of fish that you'd think would be discarded, they're going to fish kebabs. They're not being discarded. So the only thing you get is probably a small baggie full of some skin. And that goes into the container and it stays refrigerated. They have a contract that they're doing that'll have a pickup 2 or 3 times a week. So when the trash man comes, they roll it outside when he gets there, puts it on his truck, and off it goes. So there is no trash outside. Now, in planning for this, we had a couple of meetings at the site. I immediately contacted Councilor Castro, who was very helpful in trying to get the neighbors out to the site, to the existing site, to see what it was all about. And Ginny Jepson lives across the street. She came. I think she's going to speak tonight. Another gentleman came who's in a butter. I think he's going to speak tonight. I knocked on some doors for a meeting that was set up for a meeting at the existing shop, asking if those people come, and we didn't get any response. But it was well broadcast in the neighborhood that we want you to come out. We want you to see what the operation is. We want you to see what's going to happen. At 555 Plain Street, the same thing is going to happen. They're going to put a couple of drains in the floors inside. I've talked to the Board of Health about changing the way they would normally expect to see trash handled at a facility. They're fully aware of what's going to happen here. The Jordan Brothers is also heavily controlled. I happen to be in the same kind of business. I'm a wholesaler of seafood, and the Department of Public Health is all over your plans. You have to have a hazard plan. They come and inspect. Sometimes they do spot inspections. They just show up. The place can't smell. It has to be clean all the time. There's a checklist for everything, including trash. Now with COVID, you have to have a checklist. You have to ask everybody in the shop how they feel in the morning. Take your temperature. So there's a lot of oversight here. And I just want to, I'm saying this because I want to assure the neighbors that you've got a nice family operation coming into this place. They want to build a cooler out back, which will be quiet. The same number of trucks are coming. There's going to be no retail. We've talked about signage. What kind of signage are you going to have? We don't want to have Jordan Brothers Seafood out front, because that means that people are going to drive by and say, oh, I'm going to go in and buy some fish retail. Don't want that to happen. So this is a strictly, I would say, a wholesale or processing facility, small operation. Landscaping in the front of the building, we've looked at this, and it's sort of, this is a commercial building in a residential zone. It's been a car repair shop. It's been a church. My understanding that the neighbors were not happy about the church and the number of vehicles that would come, the outdoor gatherings that they'd have in the backyard making noise. You're not going to see these people. What you will see in the front is now, which is sort of a hard commercial look, you'll see landscaping. We've talked about grass. Taylor's not crazy about getting a lawnmower, but we're buying her one for Christmas. And so that's what's going to happen. It's going to be nicely landscaped, no parking in the front. I did submit to the board a preliminary look at what the landscaping would look like, mostly shrubs and bushes against the building. And in the back will be fenced off. If you're looking at the building, neighbors to the right, you can see their properties. So we've talked already, there's a mound along the edge that they prior owner tried to do something. We're gonna fix that, put some arborvitae along the edge, and then fence it so that there'll be total separation from the neighbors on to the right side. The fence will go around to the back. I don't think we're planning on any additional blacktop at this point. I don't think there's any need for it. And quite frankly, I have a feeling that the Board of Health is going to say, you don't need a dumpster, because we don't want things going in the dumpster. And we're happy with that. And on the east side of the property towards the back, there'll be another fence. And as you drive into the property at night, there'll be a fence going across, and it'll be closed off. So the back cooler will be closed off, and deliveries will happen in the rear of the building. Office space will be much larger. Storage place, they've got plenty of space for storage. And so what we're asking for is a variance, because we've got a change of use in a residential zone for commercial property. The hardship is that we've got a commercial building there, and the church went there as a matter of right. So anything with high traffic volume like that could go in there as a matter of right. I believe there was also a daycare facility that had cars coming and going all the time. This is a low impact property, low impact operation. Absolutely, you're not going to even know. If you go into that existing facility now, you don't smell fish. So I know that's a concern with the neighbors, but this is a nice family-run operation, and they're going to promise that. Thank you.
Council, on the plan, it
Say it
has,
again.
on the plan, it has a proposed 6x6 dumpster.
Right. That was before we get into, and we've had a conversation about that. We don't want to have that. You know, in every plan we have, I told the surveyor, I said, you gotta show something. So dumpster is shown. I don't think we're gonna need it.
All
But
right,
you know,
so
you can say, where's the dumpster?
I wouldn't. So if this is approved and we put a stipulation in that you cannot have a dumpster on the property, that won't be there?
You obviously need to comply with the Board of Health regulations, but my feeling is that in talking with them, we're gonna be able to not have that dumpster because we don't need it.
Okay, and that's my concern, because in your presentation, you went in depth about the trash. And it was all gonna be inside, refrigerated, picked up 3 times a
I'm
week.
telling you, the trash in the.
But I see a dumpster on the plan, and that just makes me nervous.
They don't, they have gloves, paper towels, and this much seafood trash that they keep cold.
Okay. On the plan also, as far as, you spoke a little bit about green space. Green space. The only green space I see is a planter and maybe 4 or 5 trees up in this left-hand corner. Is there something else? Is there something else planned for the front of the building?
No.
Oh,
No, what you see on this plan behind the building, and actually, did you get the shows the fence and a couple of vehicles back there? So to the back of the building, that dumpster, by the way, that's shown is sort of out on gravel. The plan here is to clean this all up, make it look nice. There's maybe a vehicle that's there overnight. The noise is going to be no more than a household air conditioner. And there's a proposed new cooler off the back of the building. Yeah. But otherwise, nothing's going to happen back. They don't need it. They do everything indoors. Deliver their stuff by small pickup trucks.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Any other questions from any other board members?
So, Counselor, how many years has Jordan Brothers been in business in Brockton?
Say it again.
How many years has Jordan Brothers been in business in Brockton?
Jordan Brothers has been in Brockton for 11 years. 11 years.
Over that 11-year period of time, how many complaints for smell and traffic has there been?
My understanding is that Deputy Chief Williams was given a call by more than one person and said, what's going on? You know, what kind of issues are there? He says, none. There's never been an issue. The next question was, what's the smell like? He said, there is no smell. And I know he's been back there a ton because of the other car operations. He's there all the time.
Yeah. All right, I have no other questions.
I got a quick question. I don't believe I heard you mention the hours of operation and the days of operation.
So they get to the shop 5 or 6 in the morning. Not much going on at 5 or 6 in the morning, other than they're maybe getting ready for the day. And then they're done by 1 or 2 in the afternoon, sometimes later. But I would say, just to be safe, 5 to 5. And on Saturday, they show up to pick up already cut fish, load up their coolers, and off they go. So they're at the shop for about an hour on Saturday. About an hour on Saturday. And it's all indoor.
All right, so what you're telling us is Monday through Friday, we're talking 5 AM to 5 PM. On a Saturday, start time,
What time do you get there on Saturday? 5, so they're gone by 6:30.
well, obviously they have to come back at some point, so are we looking at like 5 to noon or something? What time?
Did you say 2 o'clock? That's fine.
6?
On Saturday?
So Saturdays we go from 5 to 6:30, and then most of the time we sell out of product on Saturdays, so most of the trucks don't come back. We probably have 1 or 2 come back around like 2 o'clock, and they're just there to unload and then they disappear.
Yeah, so on Saturday, if the truck comes back, they're gone by 2. So say 3,
Okay.
and there's only 1 or 2 trucks that would come back.
So what I'm hearing is these trucks would leave after 5 in the morning to go to Boston to pick up this fish and then come back to the location?
How many trucks?
3 or 4.
3 or 4 trucks.
So when those trucks leave to go to Boston and they come back, there's virtually no traffic in between.
No, and do they leave the shop to go to Boston?
It's split, so some people go right from home.
They go from home.
Some of us, like I go in the morning because I do all the paperwork first thing, and then I leave and go into the city. And then we all come back collectively around 8:39, and then we do all the stuff we explained about the packing out. And then we all are gone usually by 12:31. And you don't see anybody for the rest of the day usually because we take our trucks home and we take our fish home. And then we meet up at some point and bring it, one person usually brings it back to the shop the next morning.
Okay, so basically, my question is, I think one of the concerns of the neighbors here is the volume of traffic. That usually is a question that comes up. So what I'm hearing is there's only a few trucks as part of the business. They would leave. At some point, they come back. But in the interim, there's no coming and going of potential people buying retail because there'll be no retail.
Done.
Okay, so as a stipulation, your hours, what you're asking for is 5 AM to 5 PM, 6 days. No, 5 days.
5 days.
And then on Saturdays from 5 to 3.
And even those days, on those hours on Saturday, they're gone most of the time.
Well, I just want to be careful that if you say you're not going to be there on Saturday and you show up, we don't want complaints that you're not supposed to be there on Saturday. As far as the dumpster is concerned, all of the, whatever is left over from fish will be maintained inside the building in a cool area. So you're telling this board that there will be no disposal of any fish in the outside dumpster?
0.
Okay. To reference the chief's question, I don't know about the city ordinance that may require them to have a dumpster. So I'm a little, I don't believe it.
Well,
But what we're hearing from them is they create very little rubbish, but no fish goes in the outside dumpster.
I think what I'm looking at is maybe a waiver, if the Board of Health can grant a waiver.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. All right, my other concern is this building ended up in a residential neighborhood. And I can trace this back to 1976, when they asked for the ability to spray paint cars down there. So it's been there for 44 years, at least. The concern of the neighbors is that we have a commercial operation and a residential area, obviously. So my question to you is, to make this look like it belongs in the neighborhood, my suggestion is the front of that building with a blacktop is a mess. To take that out and landscape the front of that building to make it look like the rest of the neighborhood.
We'll stipulate to that.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about a couple of plants stuck in a planter. Something that looks nice for the neighborhood.
You know what? Mother and daughter have started on a plan. The desire is to soften the front of the building. Taylor wants to say something about how they want to do that, but.
Yeah, so today, I thought about it a little bit, and I agree with the blacktop. We do plan to, if we can get it, refix the bed, you know, we're gonna put it all nice new blacktop as far as reseal it and everything. And I figured, because I don't want a lawnmower, they make a really nice artificial turf, that looks just like grass. So my thought was to put that in place out front on either side of, when you come in, like where the gate is and stuff. And
We just,
yeah,
I just want to mention the fact that artificial grass could be a problem.
okay,
All I'm asking of the attorney is this commercial building is in a residential area. As one board member, I see absolutely no reason for having the blacktop in front of that building. It's going to encourage anybody to back out on a plain street, which we don't want to do.
Let me say this, we'll stipulate to remove the blacktop in the immediate front of the building. There is a walkway there that needs to stay.
Yeah.
And they'll create a landscape plan that will be conducive to the rest of the neighborhood and will, as I say, soften that commercial look and make it look nice. And it won't just be the potted plants, it'll be more than that.
You didn't mention anything about lighting. What about lighting at night?
Well, I'm not sure what type of lighting they need there. They certainly don't need lighting, well, I suppose in the winter time if it's dark out at 4 o'clock.
All right, let me just make a comment. We encourage LED lighting.
Right.
So that it doesn't fill the we are not happy with the box lighting
Right.
attached to the building that lights up the whole neighborhood.
Yep.
And the board has been frowning upon the lights that they rent from the Edison company on a telephone pole that lights up the whole neighborhood.
Right.
So for security around the building, I think it's important that this type of building in that residential neighborhood, if there's lighting, it's that.
Whatever lighting we would stipulate would go down and would not spill over.
As far as the refrigeration, I am told that the refrigeration units aren't much more than what we would see in the central air conditioning in a house.
Correct.
And you kind of addressed how that is going to be muffled with either a fence or something that will muffle what little noise comes out of it.
We'd minimize the noise.
If this is approved, I'm just telling you what some of the stipulations that I think. The expansion of the use, if this is granted, it's going to be granted specifically for this use only.
Yes,
If that was to be expanded, they would have to come back before the board.
understood. We've discussed that at length.
You're telling us that there will be no retail sales at the site.
None.
And what I need is people driving in to buy products and leaving. You're telling us it's strictly on site.
That's what I say about the sign. They don't want to attract anything like that. They don't want anybody there.
And I am with the impression this is all processed fish when they arrive. So there is very little waste fish.
It's all fresh cut fish. And then they recut it to portions, plate size, portions that you have a meal.
Okay. I will just tell you that I went to their site today unannounced. Because I wanted to specifically walk in on them. And what you described is what I found. There's no smell, no noise, very well. So that's what I found today unannounced. All right, any other board members want to make any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'm going to open it up for public discussion. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor? Please step up to the podium.
Yes, my name is Ginny Jepson. I live at 578 Plain Street, which is diagonally across the street, straight on the corner of East Street and Plain Street. And when I got the notice in the mail, I was concerned about the fish and smell and so forth. So I went on the computer, I looked it up. What I saw on the computer is what I saw the day I went down to the plant. And I wanted my neighbors to know, who may be against it. I have never met Mr. Jordan except that one day, and that was by request. I wanted to see how it operated. It was 90 degrees, extremely humid. There was not one smell of fish anywhere. We went through the plant. Everything was extremely clean. There was no dumpster anyplace. He showed us the outside thing that works like a refrigerator. It was quiet. It could be probably a little bit more subdued, but it was, when he explained it's a family operation, and it's going to be a family operation when he's done. His children are taking it over. And I've lived down here since 1960, and I was the only house on that street. And I've watched my whole neighborhood grow. Now, when I first got there, that was Baraka's machine shop. He fixed cars. Never a problem with him. Then when he left, there was a Greek man who came. He made cabinets for doctors' offices. Never a problem. That piece of property has had, after that was a plumbing supply company, and they used it for storage. There was some, maybe pipe noise, I don't know, but I heard that from somebody, a neighbor. But then a church took it over, and they're the ones now, I guess, who are selling it. But my point is, that property is going to have somebody move into it. And if we have a family business that's well organized and clean, and I asked many questions, and Mr. Attorney has pretty much answered all my questions, to my satisfaction, I might add. And if you're going to have something in there, you might as well have something that's going to work. Because if you leave it vacant, it's going to be vandalized, just like the Walkable Club was. And they vandalized that, and you had drug addicts living in there. We don't need this. And I will also say this, some of you have been on the board before, including Chairman Galligan. You know I'm very picky about the neighborhood. I stick up for what I think is right. And we fought 8 months to get rid of waste management coming in. It was going to be a recycle plant right in back of all these neighbors. We fought, and it took us 8 months, but we got them out of there. And right now we're in a fight since February of 1997. They decided to put a power plant down there with 7 cooling towers. We have been fighting that, and it's still ongoing. They went away for a while, they came back, and we've kept them at bay since 1977, and we still have them in court, and they can't move because they can't get the decision they want. So it isn't that I have any favoritism to one or the other, but I have tried my best with a lot of help from the neighbors around me. And we've tried very hard to keep the neighborhood nice. And I do really think this is a business that would work for our little corner. And I have asked my neighbors on either side of me, they have no objections to it. And also Manny, who lives right next door to it. Manny is probably not here tonight because he works evenings, but he has no objections. He was concerned at first because he is the closest person. But Mr. Jordan showed us everything, including the fencing, and we talked about the signage, and we talked about making it look as part of the neighborhood, and he answered those questions as well. So I kind of feel that, my feeling is I say yes. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor? Anybody else here? Okay, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition? Please come forward and give your name to the clerk.
Try to keep this short. My name is Ed Delmar. I live directly behind it. I've been a resident now for 22 years. the same time, I've also been a Brockton police officer for 26,
Street address, please.
32 Cushing Road. I'm the guy that lives directly behind the property that they're talking about. So in the last 22 years, I've gotten a chance to see it go from a very quiet neighborhood to the last people that moved in, where they cut down all the trees, brought in different cars, noise levels went up by 3 times, especially during the winter. So when the trees that I have in my yard go, it gets very loud. I have an issue with that. And I understand that they're going to put a condenser back there. And to me, I just can't understand how that's not going to affect the properties that are directly behind it. Maybe not so much during the summer, but during the winter it will. I can't speak on behalf of what it's going to be for whether or not it smells, what they do with their trash, but I do understand how things can change. As a resident of Brockton, as a police officer of Brockton, I also understand how the noise in Brockton is affecting the different residents that we have. And I don't want to see that go. I don't want to see that get out of control in the neighborhood that I live in. My wife, if she was here, would probably talk for an hour. I'll leave it at that. I'm not in favor. I apologize that I couldn't make it the day that you guys opened up, but I did work. So unfortunately, I work at night. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good afternoon, committee, Mr. Chairman. My name is Sean Goyette. I live at 565 East Street. To the Jordan family, I commend you on running a successful business. I see your vehicles up and down Oak Hill Way. I'm going out through the route out to 24 very often. Mr. McCluskey, I was impressed with your presentation today. All my concerns were addressed as well. The only other thing that I didn't hear on that is that I may be fortunate that I see your vehicles a lot. There's a school bus stop directly across from that property. And there are 30, 40 kids that walk up and down roughly about the time that you guys end your operation for the day. So is there any concern for the residents as far as that would go? And to be honest, we have enough commercial traffic that goes up East and Plain Street now. I'm not a pretty big proponent of adding any more commercial vehicles going down those routes. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? You on TV?
Hi, my name is Jose Ruiz. I live 551 Plain Street. My concern is for the future. I know the fish come from Boston clean, but there's nothing guaranteed tomorrow. And the whole fish gonna come from Boston, things can change. And my value, my home, is gonna go down because when I decide to sell my home, people don't wanna live. It's everything now it looks, but in the future, things can change. Thank you for time. I appreciate it.
Right next to us.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else that wants to speak?
Good evening, Tony Rodriguez. I live on 18 Cushing Road. I'm also the Ward 4 school committee member in the city. I had the opportunity to actually visit the business. I will say it was clean at the time. They did know that we were going to show up. The first meeting was canceled for obvious reasons. I'll say it out flat. I'm not in favor of this business. I've been in my home for 20 years. I understand that, they do have to make a living, but as some of the neighbors have said, we've seen businesses come in there and go, specifically the church. As Ed said, when the time comes, there's no barrier there. They had parties. There's nothing that's gonna protect us as the neighbors that they're gonna change their business to gutting it out. You know, so they could, down the line, wanna sell fish and seafood products in that property. Also with the traffic flow, I know Councilor Castro is on the Zoom, the 9/2 meeting. She stressed the fact about the traffic flow on Plain Street. It's very high traffic. We have UPS that comes down there, every other business. And my main concern also as well is that we have a bus stop for students. We have 40 students or more that's right there across the street. Now you're bringing more traffic flow. I was told there was about 8 vehicles, now it's 4 or 3. There's nothing that's gonna say that they're not gonna increase their business volume flow, that they're gonna increase their vehicles. Now we're gonna have vehicles parked there. When you tell me that there's a vehicle, there's employees that take the vehicle home and they store the fish there, I don't buy it. There's nothing to say that their condenser is gonna be quiet. Anybody knows that if you have AC, you have a condenser, this is basically gonna be a big refrigerator. You're gonna tell me there's not gonna be any noise. That property sits directly behind my property. I don't wanna come out of my home. I'm investing into a pool to have a smell. Just because you do not smell it at the time of visiting, there's nothing that guarantees that there's gonna be smell down the line. I just urge this board to not approve this business. Chairman, you've walked the property, as you know, it's a commercial building, but there's residents there, there's homeowners, it's all single family homes. Ed invested into his property, Sean invested in property, the Reyes family invested in property, I invested in my property. There's 2 individuals that emailed that they forwarded to me. I hope it's read into record tonight, so everybody that's watching it here can listen to their concerns. This is not the type of business that should be in a residential area. You know, and ask yourself if you would want this type of business behind your home. Thank you, and that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? So I'm going to close this motion to the hearing. Is there anything? Okay, that good now? I do have a couple of letters that I want to read into the minutes of the meeting. The first letter that has come to the board from Councilor Nicastro. Dear members of the ZBA, I ask that this letter be read into the record of tonight's meeting. This evening, the agenda includes an application for a use variance at the above noted property located in Ward 4. To my knowledge, in the past 25 or so years, a cabinet maker, plumbing supplier, and church have operated from this property at various times. The current application is to allow a wholesale seafood distributor to operate there. The applicant is a 25-year family-owned business. It has operated for the past 10 to 11 years in a rented space at 50 Meadowbrook Road in Ward 4. At the applicant's request, I visited the business twice. On Tuesday, August 4th, I visited with a Plain Street neighbor as 3 people worked in a refrigerated box of a room, repacking fish fillets, scallops, and shrimp for delivery to customers. On Saturday, August 29th, I visited with a Cushing Road neighbor with no products were being repackaged at that time. I am personally affected by odors, yet during both visits, my ample nose surprisingly picked up no odors outside of the building where the applicant's business is located. I separately asked a city official with whom I collaborate on many interesting Ward 4 matters about this business. To my surprise, and without me saying a word, he commended that he has never noticed any exterior odors. The business owner went to great lengths to explain his scrupulous business practices and the frequent state inspections that they must satisfy. The place was very clean on both visits. As with any business involving the sale of fresh food, the understandable concerns are smells and sounds. 555 Plain Street is located in a residential area of Ward 4 with properties improved with dwellings on 3 sides of it. I reached out to neighbors and was contacted by 2 others, all of whom are understandably concerned about odor and noise impacts on their lovely homes. The conduct of the business appealed to me, but I do not live nearby. And we must consider what happens in the future if the business and property are sold. If the ZBA decides to approve this variance application, I strongly suggest conditions to ensure that scrupulous handling of smell and sound issues will continue. Please give consideration to the following. 1, that the applicant represented that there is little waste or trash created by the business operation, and it is stored in barrels inside the cold room until picked up by a private waste company. This means no smelly trash outside. This practice must continue. 2, the applicant must operate a wholesale business only. 3, on both visits, the outside compressor for the refrigeration system seemed to hum, but the hum may be a roar in a residential setting. There must be steps taken to minimize the equipment's sound. Can the compressor be located on the roof of the building? 4, how is cleaning of delivery trucks' interiors handled so that seafood juices do not remain on the paved parking lot? Where will business delivery trucks be parked when not in use? 6, keeping the place cool is crucial. Will there be a generator, and where will it be placed? I plan to attend tonight's virtual meeting. Thank you. Sincerely, Susan Nicastro, Council for Ward 4. The next letter from Josephina McKinnon. 856 East Street. To Zoning Board of Appeals, I am writing this letter to oppose the proposed seafood packaging at 555 Plain Street. My family and I currently live at 856 East Street. I have 2 young children and 3 teenagers, along with my husband who reside on East Street. We currently are dealing with a massive landfill close to my residence that is an eyesore, in addition to the constant foul smell of the sewer plant located off Plain Street. The proposed power has demised this once quiet, quaint community. This residential neighborhood of hardworking taxpayers do not need another commercialized industry ruining the quality of air, environment, additional traffic, or strangers in our neighborhood. Fish packaging vendors belong in industrial, commercial locations, among other vendors, not a residential neighborhood of schools, parks, and neighbors. I oppose this decision. Thank you, Josephina McKinnon. This one is from Brianna King. I received a notice about a public hearing to be held on Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. Due to work schedules, we are unable to attend via Zoom. Petition for seafood packaging commercial use at 555 Plain Street. We are opposed to that location become a seafood packaging location. We're located at 593 Plain Street. We're close enough that we are concerned about smell and noise of trucks loading and unloading, with only one backyard between us and the back lot of 555 Plain Street. I'm sure that both of these things will affect us. When this building was used as a church, we could hear everything happening in the parking lot. With the neighboring children in school starting back up at the Davis School, adding more truck traffic is a danger. Thank you for your time and consideration. Michael Norman, petitioner of Robert Jordan seeking variance 555 Plain Street. I, Michael Norman, reside and am a homeowner at 19 Cushing Road. Humbly ask that the board not grant this variance for a seafood packaging plant. I built my home 20 plus years ago in the city of Brockton to raise my family and have an ample yard to enjoy. Since then, we, the residents, have faced many living challenges from the landfill off of East Street, the foul odor from the sewage plant in Oak Hill Way, and the proposed power plant. Now we have a seafood plant that wants to locate in a residential neighborhood. This is by far the worst place possible to locate a business of this magnitude. This business, if granted, will be surrounded by residential homes and not one other single business. Imagine the smell of seafood in the summer heat while trying to enjoy your backyard or swimming pool in your backyard. Would you want this type of business behind where you live? I do not want to open my front door and be greeted with that type of smell or traffic flow of businesses to a residential neighborhood, and neither do any of my neighbors that I have had conversations with. Again, I respectfully ask that this business not be granted a variance to conduct this type of business in my neighborhood that I call home. Do we have any other letters that come in? Is that it? That's it. Okay, so at this point, I will open it up for a discussion from the members of the board. Comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Pina.
I think just the fact that the business has been in operation in Brockton for so long, and with all due respect to the residents and the concerns, I hear the concerns, I understand the concerns, but with the length of time the business has been in operation in the city, and there have been no complaints, I don't see the issue of an odor being a major issue, especially if they have no problem with complying with stipulations that it remain wholesale. They maintain the trash inside, and they have pickup 3 times a week. I don't think their past history indicates anything other than they'll maintain a great operation. That building where they're proposing to move, I know it's been an auto body shop, it's been a church, it's been various other things that generate traffic and odors and noise. I think this will be this will be a very inconspicuous use of the building as far as the neighbors are concerned. With that, I plan to be in support of this.
Thank you. Any other members want to comment? Right, I have a couple of comments to make. What I heard tonight is a concern of the smells coming from this location. We've heard traffic, we've heard about school buses, we've heard about school kids. What I saw when I went there is not anything that's going to generate a lot of traffic. And we heard tonight in the testimony from the petitioner that basically the trucks leave in the morning and they come back in the afternoon, and that's about it. And in my investigation, there is no coming and going of traffic out of this location during the day. They made it very specific that they have no intention of doing any retail business. So that means there will be no vehicles, privately owned vehicles, that will be coming and going from this property. As far as adding additional truck traffic and traffic to Plain Street, this particular use appears to be a use that's not going to impact traffic at all on that street. When you consider what could go in this building without zoning board approval, and then consider what we're looking at tonight as a family-run business that has an excellent track record, that is highly regulated by the Board of Health plus by state regulation, there's going to be a lot of eyes watching this location. And this building has been here for a number of years. And we heard there's been a number of things that have gone in and out of this building over the years. And in my experience on the zoning board, in today's society, there are a number of things that could go in that location without ever coming to this board with very little regulation. I am going to make a suggestion of a number of stipulations that would apply to this location. And if this was to be granted by a vote of the board, these stipulations will highly regulate what's going to go on at this location. As I said earlier, one of my concerns was when I went into Plain Street, the place looked like a dump from the front. And I mean, it doesn't look like it belongs in that neighborhood. And that's why I mentioned tonight in my question, as one member of the board, the petitioner really has an obligation to the neighbors down there to make this building look like it fits into that neighborhood, and to take the blacktop out front so that it doesn't look like a parking lot out front, so people can't be pulling in or backing out onto Plain Street. I think that's a very simple thing to ask for, which could enhance what the building looks like from the front. Personally, I don't see a lot of traffic coming in and out of this place. And I'm going to suggest some stipulations here, and I'm going to read them to the board, and then when we take our vote, it may go up or it may go down. But if it is approved, I think these are stipulations that the board can agree to. The first thing we talked about was hours. We were talking Monday through Friday from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday from 5 to 3, and I don't think we're going to see anything going on Sunday in this place. We're talking Monday through Saturday. The dumpster location, there was concern about the dumpster. We can recommend that there be no dumpster, and we can regulate that no fish products can be put into that dumpster that's in the yard. So there'll be no smells that will come from that dumpster. The front landscaping we've talked about, the lighting for this property should be downward lighting property so it does not affect any of the neighbors. The noise, if there is any from the refrigeration, has to be muffled. And anybody that deals with refrigeration today can handle that situation, but it is a big concern that we heard here tonight from abutting neighbors that their concern, and one of the big concerns, is noise that they would hear from any refrigeration. There will be no expansion of the use of this property. What they're telling us tonight is they are bringing pre-processed fish into that location. They are cutting this fish into small containers that go out to restaurants and other locations. They are not bringing entire fish into this location and cutting and gutting fish at that location. When I went there today, that is not what I saw. I saw a very clean operation with cleaned, filleted fish were cut and put into small containers. There'll be no retail on-site sales. There'll be no transient customer sales, and they agreed to that. Processed fish, fish pre-cut, the whole fish process, as I just explained, no raw fish will be brought in and cut up so that there's a lot of waste of fish. We discussed the surrounding privacy fence, and I don't think we mentioned, but I'm sure we're going to talk about arborvitaes, trees, green space to address the situation of not having this building really prevalent from at least Cushing Avenue, which is the direct neighbors in the back. When I went there today, I noticed that somebody had planted evergreens along the back side of that property, which would be along the side towards Cushing Avenue. Apparently they have been neglected. Many of them still look like they're in very good shape. But I heard that we are going to put a fence, which would be a privacy fence, and also shrubbery or green space along that fence. So those were the stipulations that I noted in the discussion that we had tonight. I'll leave it open to the board. Is there anybody that wants to embellish on that?
Motion to grant with said stipulations?
Somebody want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Mr. Lane seconds it. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bernard,
Yes.
Mr. Lanus,
Yes.
Chief Williams, Mr. Pina,
Yes.
Chairman Galligan.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that's a 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
The vote is 5 in favor, 0 in negative. The petition is granted with the stipulations.
Thank you, members of the board.
4 subsection 2A for relief from the city setback for vegetative screening when abutting a park in a C5 zone located at 609, 627 Pleasant Street.
You ready for me? I lost my client. I don't know. Yeah. Well, members of the board, I think most of you are familiar with this project. This is Brad Cartwright's site. Excuse me for a moment. Located at 609-627 Pleasant Street. From an historical perspective, this was the old Hebshe Nesarella real estate office, which for the most part had gone vacant for many years. I think there were sporadic tenants in there until a couple of years ago. Mr. Cartwright bought the property a few years back and came before this board with a comprehensive plan, which we've submitted to you. And we came before the board in 2018 seeking variances for restaurant use, retail use, and from relief from the setback of the park. The park has a special ordinance under Article 27-24-2A for screening. And you have to have, I believe if it's a light screening, you have to have a setback of about 100 feet. For heavier screening, you have to have a setback of about 50 feet. And basically, we came before the board after having gone to the Traffic Commission, the Planning Board, tech review, and had a very, very detailed meeting with the board a couple of years ago. At which time, the board granted a variance for relief from the C5 zone. I'll tell you what that is in a moment, but allowing retail use, restaurant use, and relief from the screening. At the time, we had and still have an agreement with the Park Commission that they have agreed that the agreement that we put in place 2 years ago, they will still stand by. That agreement basically calls for Mr. Cartwright to clean up an area to the west of the property, which was the old entrance to the park. That's become overgrown with debris and trees, and he's agreed to put in a sum of money, I think it was $20,000, to the Park Commission for the purpose of maintaining that. Mr. Cartwright also agreed to continue to maintain it, and actually for quite selfish reasons, because there he is. Brad, can you put the plan up here? Have you got the plan? Yeah, okay. So yeah, put this one second, please. So Brad agreed to maintain that side of the property for selfish reasons, because as you come down, coming into the city, and this is what I would call a gateway property to the city, he wants to make it look good, and he maintains his properties in a very nice way. He has properties all over the South Shore and does it in a good way. So the board granted variances, and a couple of the neighbors, one of which has since sold his property, appealed to the land court. And as you can only imagine, when you appeal to court, you get tied up in court for a significant amount of time. What is allowed by right at this property, this is in a C5 zone. So offices are allowed by right. Pharmacies are allowed. Medical offices are allowed. And there are various other special uses. I think hotels, this isn't big enough for a hotel, but it certainly is big enough for a pharmacy or some kind of a medical facility. And it being close to the highway and close to the hospitals is well suited for that. The only thing that we're asking for, so we're not asking for relief from any of the allowed uses. We're not asking for anything outside of the C5 zone. We're only asking for relief from the setback requirements of the Park Commission under that ordinance 27-24-2A. And I'll tell you what, if you're looking at the plan, you would basically, so the park, PW Field Park is here, you would basically come all the way down here, you'd come all the way in here, and you'd lose about at least a half of the property because of the screening requirement. We met with the Park Commission on several occasions and came up with an agreement, which I don't see it in my application, but I know it's in the record. And if we could refer to perhaps even the older 2018, I'd be willing to incorporate that. I did speak with Tim Carpenter from the Park Commission, who agreed and stipulated that, yes, that's the agreement that they would still go with. So what we're asking for is not the 50-foot thick vegetation, but rather 20-foot along this area, which is residential. So we've got a 20-foot setback here, and actually out to Pennsylvania Ave, it goes to a 30-foot setback for vegetative screening. That, by the way, has been, we met with the planning board at the site plan issues a couple of years ago, and everybody was in favor of that happening. In fact, I think there was a proposed ordinance at one point cutting it back to 10 feet. I'm not quite sure if it was 10 or 20. So in any event, the park is here and here. And on the park side, because we're willing to maintain this area, we're looking for a 10-foot setback on the park side, 20-foot setback on a portion of the residential side, and a 30-foot setback on this part of Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the only relief we're asking for. The hardship we have, and by the way, that's the relief, that's the exact relief, and this is the exact same plan that we presented to the board in 2018, with a couple of minor exceptions. I think at that 2018 meeting, Mr. Chairman, you requested that we remove some of the parking along Pennsylvania Ave and push that parking back, which shows on this plan. Also, there were a couple of parking spots on the entrance of the property here that we removed at the request of the board as well. So what this plan is, it's the exact plan that was approved with the stipulations requested by the Board of Appeals back in 2018. It's the exact same setback relief which we're asking for. And incidentally, so what's the hardship on that? Obviously, the hardship is that if we have to stick with the current status of the ordinance, we lose a tremendous amount of property. And I believe that this lot, or two lots, were here before the ordinance came into effect. So in effect, that ordinance is a bit of a taking of the property, if you will. So that's the hardship. There's also unusual shape, size, soil conditions. There's some outcroppings here, I think of granite, that create a hardship as well. As you know, I think we had a new hardship come the other day. The fire department might be aware of that. So the existing building, if we had any hopes of doing anything with that building, those hopes are gone, because the property about a week ago suffered a substantial fire. I don't know if it was a total, but it's certainly big enough to create a major problem. And I would say that because that building exists on the property and now can no longer be used, that's another hardship. So with that, I would respectfully request the board, I know that these meetings have been going on, these hearings have been going on a little long tonight, to basically endorse the project. One other thing. So that case in the land court, which is still ongoing, and it's supposed to go to trial in November by Zoom. And I don't know how you do a trial by Zoom when you have exhibits to introduce and expert witnesses, et cetera. We would be willing to stipulate that the relief granted in 2018 becomes null and void with the issuance of the variance tonight. The effect of that would be that anything else outside of the C5 zone that was requested to happen, we would have to come before this board again and go through the whole process and the hearings. And quite frankly, we're not interested in that because, you know, the neighbors have dug their heels in, two of them anyway. And you know, it's held up the project for too long. And as I say, this is a gateway property. You drive into the city, you see this, you go, oh my God, what happened? Even before the fire. Brad was away, and I got a call from Brad that some people had been dumping their trash behind the property. There's even a boat, there was a boat back there. So Brad, as a result, blocked off both entrances, one with his excavator. I don't know if he's used it on the building yet, but is that still there? The building's still there. So, so we cut off all access, and now it's, you know, this property needs some help. It needs to be revitalized. So with that, I'll stop and ask the board to respectfully grant the variance requested. And I think, by the way, only anybody's entitled to speak. I'm not sure whether they're entitled to be heard on an issue where they have no standing. The only outfit that has standing relative to the setback is the Park Commission, and they've agreed to let it go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council. Can you hear me?
I heard that part.
Who has the responsibility of taking care of that property to the west? The Park Commission or the property owner? He's committing $20,000, but is he going to fix it or maintain it, or is the Park Commission going to maintain it?
Well, as I said, because of the litigation, the property's been sitting there vacant for a couple of years. And unbeknownst to Brad, out back, people were coming back there and dumping. You couldn't see it from the street. And he was away and called me, and he said the Board of Health called him and we need to act on this immediately. So I went back just to see what was out there and called him, and I think within that afternoon, he had his crew out there and cleaned the place up. You know, I think there've been some homeless people that when you get a building like that, it's a target. And they want to go in. Sometimes they go in, or at least they hang out back because they can't be seen from the street. And Brad blocked off the entrances to prevent people from coming back there. As I say, somebody dropped a boat back there. I actually checked it out to see if we still float. Didn't.
So the question was, who's going to maintain the property going forward? Is Brad going to maintain it, or is the Park Commission going to maintain it?
Going forward, I think Mr. Cartwright has to wait for the direction of the fire department, who I assume are doing some kind of investigation as to the cause of the fire. And I believe that when he gets the go-ahead to do anything, that the rest of the building will come down. He has the excavator there ready to go. And of course, if the board grants permission to go forward, he's going to build a building there.
Council, I think the first is the road going in. Who's gonna maintain the road?
Oh, that roadway. Well, that roadway is not used. I don't believe it is it?
But it's a responsibility.
It's the Park Commission's road, yeah. What Brad has agreed to is to clean up the road, I guess, but more importantly, between the road and the property line, there were dead trees and debris. It's always a focus of debris. And he's agreed to clean that up. There's a stipulation here. Developer will establish a 10-foot vegetative line along the border of the Park Commission. Will construct micro mesh fence at the top of the retaining wall to the northwest sides of the property. Shall allot $20,000 for the purpose of making improvements or repair to the park area abutting the developer's property. Such funds will be for the purpose, among other things, of clearing or removing dead trees, cleaning existing monuments, the two stone out front, the park entrance, installing a fence at the gate, and he'll work with the park department. He'll continue to landscape, and in his own cost will install and operate a watering system for the vegetation along that area, and will be granted permission to manicure and maintain the vegetation along the entrance of the park of Pleasant Street. There's really nothing about the road itself because the road isn't traveled by the public, and that entrance is closed.
Did that answer your question? Now I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor?
None.
Do I have the right petition first before I speak? Good evening, board. As I mentioned earlier, this Shirley Azak, Ward 7 City Councilor, and I have been to all the meetings that Attorney McCluskey and Mr. Cartwright have gone to in the past few years since I was elected regarding this property. And I have to say, it's the entrance to our city, and I understand that some of the, a couple of the residents on Pennsylvania Avenue were not in favor of anything going, any of these petitions. But I have to say, we can't be happy with what's there, what's been there for the past 10 years. The building is old, it's run down, and now it's burnt. So we need to, I put my faith in the board that we make the right decision this evening and help Mr. Cartwright move forward and get something beautiful at the entrance of our city. He is known for his properties. He owns other properties in Braintree and his funeral homes, and they're all beautiful and immaculately kept. The agreement, to answer Mr. Bernard, the agreement last time they came before the board was that they went before the Parks Commission, the DW Fields Park Commission, and they and the list of stipulations were agreed upon with the board and Mr. Cartwright, and that part of his agreement would be that he would kind of maintain and keep it clean as it has become a dumping ground. What Attorney McCluskey stated, yes, there was a boat there, there's been mattresses, there's been, it's become an eyesore, dumping ground, and I get a lot of complaints about how awful it looks and what people are dumping there, and we do have homeless people that were living there. They're right behind the building. So it has become a problem for us. So I would like to see that taken care of. I understand I have received emails from Mr. Morgan. I hear what he's saying. He's also stated he's no longer a Brockton resident, but you know, with that, I hear what they're stating, but we have to also listen to the other residents. There are four other homes on the street. It's a very small street, and a lot of the residents went to the meetings that we had in the past, and they had their questions answered. Mr. Cartwright and Attorney McCluskey worked with them, but, made some changes to some of the plans. Those were the plans that were before you 2 years ago. So it looks to me like Mr. Cartwright and Attorney McCluskey have tried to work with the residents to really invest in Brockton and really put something nice there. So I hope that you will make the right decision this evening, that you will support this petition. And I know that, to seek all the businesses along DW Fields Park are in violation of this ordinance. I mean, it's become very difficult, but I know that if this was granted to them, that they will help us maintain the integrity of DW Fields Park. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor? We'll close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition? Please don't go into the meeting.
Please come to the recording.
I sent an email earlier. Will that be read into the record?
What is your name?
My name's William Morgan. I live at 14 Pennsylvania Ave. I'm still a resident of Brockton. I don't know who told you I wasn't. I never sent that email.
Okay, yeah, I do have that.
All right, so you can read that into the record. I don't need to speak.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in opposition?
Dan De Silva. I live at 18 Pennsylvania Ave. I grew up in that home almost 30 years now this month. I bought the house from my parents about a year ago. I just want to reiterate what's on Bill's email as far as the variance to the ordinance goes. I don't believe hardship is a sufficient reason for them to claim that it's giving them an issue with their project. The property was bought with full knowledge of what the ordinance was for that property. As far as the other businesses go in the area for already being within that ordinance, that's most likely because they had already existed before the ordinance went into effect, which, what year was that, 94 maybe, 92, 94. So those buildings were already there within the ordinance. I feel like bringing it 10 feet within the park could create a lot of issues. You got the property there right now is a mess. They've committed to keeping the area nice. It hasn't been done thus far. So that's an issue. The safety issue on the main street there, Pleasant Street. I was hit as a pedestrian crossing that street in 2012. I suffered 2 broken bones in my back, a snapped femur in my left leg. I had to get surgery to get a rod put in my leg. Nobody was ever held responsible for that accident. And it just shows how dangerous that street and intersection could be. As I'm sure you guys already know, it's one of the most dangerous intersections in the state. Adding that gas station right there didn't help it. It backs up traffic even more. You guys didn't allow the variance on the ordinance for the Westgate Mall. So why would you do it for this property is one of my questions. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Oh, the backyard. From my bedroom window, I can see right into the back driveway behind what used to be the Nazarella office building. It's now Cartwright's property. Nobody's ever been against putting something there, some type of commercial building or, whatever type of business, office building, as long as it's within the C5 ordinance. We don't want a variation from that because you've got long-standing citizens that have been on that street for 20, 30, maybe even longer. I myself have been on the street for 30 years, so I guess that's pretty much it for me. And all right, thank you.
Just for your ratification, they came before us the last time. We're looking to do C2 use the C5 zone. Right. That now has gone away. And they are going to call anything out of the C5.
Right, and like I said, we're not against any type of commercial property, office building, small store, whatever the case, going in there. The only issue we have is the variance in the ordinance, bringing it so close to the park. There's no reason for that, and there's no option because the property was bought with full knowledge of that ordinance. So that's pretty much my argument. We're not against the C5 commercial property going back there at all. We prefer, because like I said, the property right now is an eyesore. It's been an eyesore long before Cartwright even bought the property. Now it's caught fire.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak in opposition? Is there any? Seeing I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. We have letters that have been sent to be read in the meeting minutes. This one is from Charles Morgan. To the Zoning Board of Appeals, my name is Charles Morgan. I'm a former resident of Brockton. I'm writing to you about a request to reduce the buffer zone on a parcel property being called 609-627 Pleasant Street. There is a term, let the buyer beware. They are supposed to do their due diligence and research their purchase. So the buffer required should have been known to them. It was known to them and they just want things to be skewed their way for their benefit. I still have many family friends in Brockton. For years, I was a member of the Colonial Roadrunners who ran races in the DW Field Park in Brockton. For a number of years, I also did the triathlon that is usually held in DW Field Park. DW Field Park is an asset the city of Brockton should steadfastly guard. It is an oasis and place for everybody to enjoy. There were guidelines set to protect and guard this property. The property DW Field Park is owned by the city of Brockton. So everyone on this board sworn to serve the city of Brockton should protect this asset of the city and tell this petitioner that, sorry, you should have known the rules. There is no hardship here. For years and years, this was a business and it observed the buffer. The business nature of the property can still be expanded with the buffer being observed. There are no financial issues that should grant a hardship buyer beware known to the property. Topographically, the property is high, dry, nearly perfectly square, no hardships at all. Each petition is supposed to be judged on its own merits, so there seems to be no reason to make any changes. Please protect DW Field Park by following all established zoning rules around it. Please deny this petition, Charles Morgan. I have another one here from Mr. Bill Morgan. I have received notice that the matter of the building on Pleasant Street will be heard at the Brockton Zoning Board of Appeals on Wednesday, September 9th. I ask again if you would consider opposing the measure on behalf of some of us citizens. As you may know, the building on the property burned earlier this week. It changes little. Since Mr. Cartwright bought the property, he forced the 4 tenants that had operated there to quit the premises and allowed the building to fall into disrepair. The lot has become an illegal dumping ground. New construction was already a foregone conclusion at the time of the fire. We ask that any new construction follow the existing zoning laws and honor the protections the city put in place for DW Field Park. Also, the fire does not change any of the argument below where it is clear that no variance could be granted according to the law. I am writing you concerning that Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. Indeed, on the agenda is the petition of Brad Cartwright. According to Brockton Code of Ordinances, there must be something unique about the soil condition, shape, or topography of the land, so that a literal enforcement of zoning laws would create a substantial hardship to the owner. There's nothing about the soil condition, shape, or topography of the Cartwright property that prevents the use of the property in compliance with the required setback in zoning district C5 with any other zoning. The literal enforcement of the current zoning restrictions would result in a hardship. The same applies. There's nothing to prevent the property from being used in compliance with the zoning laws. It is to be noted that Mr. Cartwright purchased the premises with full knowledge that the locus abutted DW Field and the zoning requirements, including setbacks. The granting of the variance would not be detrimental to the public good. On the contrary, the granting of the variance is extremely deleterious to the public good. This pandemic has underscored our need to protect our parks and open spaces. There could be no worse time than the present to jeopardize those spaces when people need to get fresh air, walk, exercise, and all the while maintaining social distance. Moreover, we must not overlook the benefits of Brockton derived from the aesthetics of DW Field. It is a crown jewel of our city. Fred Olmsted designed the park as a refuge in a growing city. As one enters the park from Pleasant Street, the houses and office building gradually disappear until the park road is surrounded by trees, ponds, paths, and fields. Just as that transition is to take place, the proposed project would put an 8-foot concrete wall the length of the Cartwright property. Mr. Olmsted have designed a graffiti blackboard topped by a guardrail and parking lot. His idea was to bring the traveler away from the city to the park, not bring the park into the city. And lastly, the variance can be granted without nullifying or derogating from the intent or purpose of the ordinance. The purpose of the setback is to protect the park. Granting the variance is detrimental to the park, certainly contrary to the intent of the ordinance. Mr. Cartwright has not fulfilled the requirements for a variance and therefore should not be granted. It begs the question why a similar variance was granted in the past, as nothing was presented to the Zoning Board of Appeals at that hearing that would have entitled him to the variance. We find ourselves now in the rarest of circumstances, a second chance, a chance to make things right, a chance to cement our place in history as a city that protected the legacy of DW Field Park for future generations, and not the city that sold that legacy for a pipe dream in an economic downturn and allowed an 8-foot concrete wall that will be covered with graffiti in short order to forever scar the beautiful gift entrusted by DW Field. Morgan. And this one is the same one from Mr. Morgan. And that is all that I have received. We have nothing else? Nothing, just these. Okay. At this point, I am going to close the public hearing, and I will now open it up for deliberations from the board. So what's before us tonight is the allowed use for C5, which is allowed in that area, and the request tonight is relief from the side yard setback on the DW Field Park side of the property. All of the stipulations that we presented at the last time around will hold. We did not mention tonight the do not block the box out on Pleasant Street. That is to be also retained. And the last time we removed a number of parking places on the Pennsylvania Avenue side to create a 30-foot setback there. And as the attorney mentioned, we eliminated several parking places on the driveway coming in from Pleasant Street so that nobody could be backing out while somebody's trying to pull in. Other than that, the plan is as shown. Any comments from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think
Mr.
the developer, the owner of the property has been very cooperative in the past. And I think in order to fit the parking requirements and satisfy some setbacks from the Pennsylvania Avenue side, we have to consider the fact that there has to be some relief with the setbacks on one of the sides in order to fit in the parking that's required. And they do have an agreement with the Parks Commission, and they seem to be working well with the Parks Commission, and I don't see any problem with granting this.
Also, on the brief that he submitted to the board, the plan is to lease the proposed structure for the principal permitted uses mentioned above and will not presently seek retail or restaurant uses. So it's strictly C5.
I'll make a motion to grant.
Second.
On the motion, is the board conducive to the same stipulations that we presented the last time they were before us?
Yes.
Or stipulations that certainly would pertain to the present petition that's before us? Okay, motion's been made and seconded to grant. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Bernard,
Let's all go sit. Alex was like, let's all sit together.
Mr. Lanus,
Yes.
Mr. Bernard,
Yes.
Mr. Pina,
Yes.
Chief Williams. Chairman Galligan.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that is a 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Okay, the vote is 5 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The petition is approved. It is granted.
Thank you, members of the board.
Beth, I'm going to hang on to this for my decision. Okay, let's see, I'm going to turn this over. All right, so we're ready right now? The next petition is 20-65, the petition of James Morrissey and Kevin Harriman, care of 1325 Belmont Street, Brockton, Mass, for a variance from Article 3, Section 27.9 and 27.13A to construct a single-family home on existing lot lacking frontage, lot size and width, or a determination under 27.12 that the lot is buildable by right in an R1C zone located at plot 15/A Miller Avenue.
Yep, thank you. Well, good evening, members of the board. Attorney John McCutcheon here with Jim Morrissey, Kevin Harriman, Scott Ferrier. We're asking for a variance for what I would call a ghost lot that stands alone now amongst lots that it used to be contiguously or owned in common with back in the day, going back to 1890 on a plan recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 1, page 107. The lot in question is lot 49 on Miller Street. To the right, it is abutted by 27 Miller Street, Miller Street, which is consists of lots 50 and 51. The Lindquist family used to own several lots in this area, namely 49, 48, 49, 50, 51, and 52, which run the yellow ones up here. On 50 and 51 was the family home, and it straddled the two lots. Next to 50, obviously, is 49. That's the vacant lot. Next to 49 is 48. That too was part of the family home, family lots. Lot number 48 was sold, although it was next to another vacant lot. It was sold in 1975 after the introduction of zoning and without the benefit of a special permit or a variance. So that lot was sold. It was next to another vacant lot, and it was granted a building permit. I know you don't want me to get into lots all over the place, but just because of the proximity to this lot in question, at the very end of the street on North Carey and Miller, there were lots 45, 6, and 7. Those actually had merged back in 2005. By 2005, there was a 3-family home on one of the lots. On this 45, I believe, 45. The owner came before the Board of Appeals at the time and were granted 2 more buildable lots along the same footprint of the original plan, the 1890 plan. So what we're left with is a situation where we've got, this was owned by the Lindquist, this is 27 Miller, this is called 0 Miller. No, I'm sorry. These two were 50 and 51. Lot 49, which is in yellow, that stands alone by itself and has no common ownership anymore with anything around it. So we filed, and also across the way here, up in here, same thing has happened. Some of these lots were just carved up and granted building permits. I think basically what happened was that the ordinance was overlooked back in, it came in 67, 68. Things happened over time, and it's taken a few years to get sophisticated and knowledgeable about the zoning ordinance. But nonetheless, what we've got here is a situation of a vacant lot with no common ownership around it. So we've filed for a variance. This lot is 60 by 120, so it's 7,200 square feet. It's a good sized lot. There are many other homes that have been built on 7,200 square foot lots in this neighborhood. When I filed the application, the people that presently own and reside in lots 50, 51, that's the 27 Miller Street, they were under the impression that they actually owned that lot, lot 49, and voiced their objection to the Board of Appeals via an email. They have since rescinded their rejection, agreed that they do not own lot 49, and have submitted another email, which I submitted to Christine. I hope it's been circulated, stating that, in fact, they're in favor of this approval. So just basically, the hardship here is the fact that the Lindquist, who always thought that that this was a buildable lot, have held on to this lot for years and years and years. The original Lindquist family that had their homestead here, mother and father sold or gave the lot to brother and sister. Sister has since died, and Philip Lindquist is the remaining owner. And he's ready to sell off and get rid of this lot that he always thought was a buildable lot. So what we're asking for is a variance. The hardship is that it's a standalone lot, and if it's a standalone lot and nobody's caring for it, maybe they end up not paying the taxes on it. It becomes a problem. So the hardship is that sort of just out of the evolution of what happened in this neighborhood with regard to variances, no variances, we have a situation that sort of begs for resolution. We're looking to build a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, colonial style with a farmer's porch. I remember the day many, many, many years ago when Chairman said, give me a house that's not a split level and looks like something that'll fit on the lot. And lo and behold, came up with that plan. I used to call it the Jay Gormley because he gave me the plan. And somebody stole it from me. It wasn't Jim, but it was somebody else who took it, and I think took it before this board many times, but they liked the plan because this house fits on the lot. We meet the setback requirements. Here's a picture of a house that you built,
Yeah, 22 VC Street,
22 Beasley
which is
Street.
an
So
exact record.
there's the house in real life, in color. And this is what they want to build here, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2.5-bath home. And it's attractive and it fits on the lot. We meet the setback requirements from the street, side yard, rear yard, and driveway is lots of plans here. Driveway is here, accommodate, how wide is it? It's a double wide driveway, so it'll fit 4 cars, but 2 without having to have anybody back off. So there's no on-street parking that would be needed here. So in general, because of this fact that it's an orphaned lot, and we have a good plan, we have a hardship, the lot being left by its own, on its own, is going to lend itself to problems down the road. Mr. Lindquist is elderly. He's not prepared to take care of it anymore. His sister has passed, and he and we would respectfully request that this board grant a variance to build a single-family home there.
Yes.
You're not Mr. Lindquist, are you?
No, the
I wasn't
house,
sure whether this-
I bought the back of the house. Evening, Mr. Chairman. My name's Shel Sinkworth. I'm from 349 North Carey Street. The development of this property would be abutting the rear of the property would abut my 3 acres that I have there. I am all for the property because for the last 1890, there have been trees and what have you. People have been using it for a dumping ground for yard waste and what have you. So the 20-30-foot trees would get removed. We'd have a pristine home there. My concern would be, 3 concerns would be the house would be turned sideways a quarter turn to the width.
So it's 28 feet wide and it's 36 feet deep.
Okay, so 28 feet wide would be the front of the house.
28 feet wide.
Very good, no problem there. I'd be concerned about drainage to the rear down to my property. If anything, it's going to be level or down out to the street.
Right, we're doing the walkout in the rear of the home, so we're following the contour and grading of the property. So
Okay.
we're not going to fill up the lot and create a problem down
Good.
there.
And I have had trouble in the past with developers at 361 North Carey and 9 Miller Ave, where they just left the property in the grade in a disarray. And I've also had an issue to the rear of my property at 8 Granite Street, where the developer never even sought a variance, and they built the house without the reasonable setback requirements, which the board might want to look at in the future. So my last request is I'm asking for either stipulation or an order and conditions before a certificate of occupancy is granted. You just check with me to make sure that everything is fine. I don't believe there's going to be any issue. But the building department went ahead at 8 Granite Street and issued certificate of occupancy. And I've had chimneys dumped in my yard. I've had pine trees dumped in my yard. I've gone through a process, which I'm not going to continue here, but that's the only reason I wanted orders and conditions that I'd be notified for the final before it was granted for occupancy.
You have a stone wall between this property and yours, correct?
I'm sorry?
You have a stone wall between this.
No, I actually have a 5-foot chain link fence that I've installed for.
So we'll respect the boundary, but if we were approved, Kevin and I would stay in communication.
Okay, very good. Is there any other possibility? And it's not my concern. Are you going to put fence up or anything?
On both sides, yes.
What kind of fence?
I'm going to put privacy, stockade, so 6 feet, and when it hits the front corner of the house, it'll transition down.
On
4.
both sides?
Both sides.
Thank you.
Okay, I have to ask 2 questions where you guys had a private conversation back.
Sorry.
One of his concerns was the runoff of water. You going to address that issue?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, the lot is proposed as a walkout basement, so we'll meet the existing grade in the back of the property, so the drainage will stay exactly as it exists out there now.
So we usually say no exacerbation of all right, and secondly, what was the story on the fence?
They're gonna put up a fence on either side of the property, left-hand side, right-hand side, stockade fence.
All right, is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor? Anybody else here?
I would like to speak if possible. I'm in a Zoom. Am I being held? Can you hear me?
Give me name and address.
Yeah, I have a few concerns because I'm in a property at 15 Miller Ave, which is the left side of the building. And I've been a homeowner here for 5 years. I've noticed with the eroding of the yard, there's about a 6 to roughly 12 feet, I can't be exact, of depth and height and level between my backyard and my house compared to just about the bottom part of that yard. And I was curious on how would you guys be able to fix the flooding that's caused in that yard 6 months out of the year. When it rains, the water doesn't go anywhere. It sits directly in the middle of that lot. And I'm afraid that if you guys do build a house there, will that flooding be pushed over into my land? Secondly, when I moved into this house, that lot was vacant. I went to City Hall and they told me that that lot was unbuildable. So I believe that I was going to have privacy between, you know, one side of my house versus the other. So when you're building a land there, where would the privacy be? And what I just heard you guys mention about the fencing, and I was curious on will the fencing be at the level of your property or will it be at my existing level property? Because my level of housing compared to where the lot is a significant depth of like 10 feet, probably maybe 6 to 12, 10 feet in that range. Another thing too was my land was washing away into that land. So do you guys have in your plan sheet a retaining wall on the property line between both lots?
All right. You were number 27.
15.
Yeah, 15 Miller Ave. I'm not sure the plot number, Nate. I think I'm 50. I'm not even sure, but 15 Miller Ave, the roundhouse to the right, no, the left of the property.
Standing on Miller Avenue.
Correct.
Yeah, to the right.
He's lot 48.
The original lot 48.
48, there you go.
Does somebody want to just address it?
Sure, I could address a few of the issues, Mr. Chairman. That house that was constructed, a couple of differences from what we're doing. We're doing a walkout basement, so Miller Ave is a little bit higher and the properties on Miller Ave slope to the rear of those properties. Our property, by doing a walkout rear, we reduce the amount of fill needed. This particular property, number 15, they leveled off the property. So he's correct in saying they have between a 6 and an 8 foot high boulder retaining wall that's entirely on their property to allow them to have a level front yard and backyard. We're not looking for that situation by using the walkout rear. His retaining wall is entirely on his property. Mr. Morrissey said he's going to put up a stockade fence. It obviously has to be on his property, so at his level. So it's not going to be 6 feet above their property. It's going to be 6 feet above ours, again, because they're about 6 or 8 feet higher than we are because of the type of house that they built on the home.
So where does the privacy kick in? Is that only 2 feet of privacy? Is that what you're showing here?
I would consider.
If your lot is 6 feet.
I would consider doing a fence.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would consider doing a fence between your property and this lot at your lot level, so you enjoy the privacy you currently have. It would be built essentially.
You'll be at my,
We'd have to work together on that. So you wouldn't see 2 feet of height, you'd see the full height of the fence.
right, but half the land is still not retaining. So if you put a fence up, it's gonna fall over. With the land being the way it is now, from when I bought it, the previous owner didn't take care of the land. There's nothing but trees, poison oak, debris, everything that's in there. And it almost became a waste of a land because people dump things there all the time. I've even cleaned up 10 feet into your land to have my land look semi-decent. It's too much maintenance to go back and forth. So when I say the privacy part and the retaining part is because that's one of my concerns, with, having kids and the level of it not being buildable, now it is, but now you're having the house sit 6 feet lower is a concern. You know what I mean? Like you're literally looking right into our room or right into our kitchen with no privacy at all. Those are the 2 concerns that I had, and flooding being another one. How would you have that drainage completely pushed out if the land slopes in both ways and it has to create the pitch? You get what I'm saying? I'm not sure if that sounds, can you guys hear me?
On the side.
This gentleman's house. Correct. So the one that you see right now won't be there when this is done.
Not as much, that's correct.
I'm having a hard time hearing you guys. The microphone's pushed straight from your mouth. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, sir.
Okay. The question I asked was, if this house was built, the grade, the side of that house, this grade is going to come up to be more in line with the grade next to your house. Right now, the grade drops on the ground. That grade will come up when they build the house in there. So the difference between the new guy will not be what it is today. And I think who is a very reputable developer, he will work with you to alleviate any concerns that you have on that side.
Absolutely.
I'm willing to work with the developer, yes.
Yeah, and we want to work with you too, sir.
Okay, yeah, if you can leave the email or mailing information, we can go on from there, but.
If approved, sir, I'll stop by tomorrow and give you our address. An email.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
will tell you that as a zoning board member, we have dealt with many occasions, and situations like what you're describing, they have the ability to rectify it. All right, you all set? Okay, I have a letter from Mr. Sinkowitz, who spoke already. And he spoke on everything that he said in his letter. I have. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor? I'm going to close that motion here. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition? I'm going to close that portion here. Is there any city officials that want to be heard on this issue? Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion here. I have a letter. Okay. I have a letter that has come into the board. Jack and Darlene Campesino, who reside at 32 Miller Avenue, would like to participate in the Zoom meeting to be held on September 9th regarding 15-0 Miller Ave. Please confirm receipt of this email and send us the Zoom meeting calendar invitation. Have they participated tonight?
On now.
Okay. There we are. We got you. Okay, I can't hear them.
Okay, we're right here.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Okay, I just, what you want to, say something about Jason at 15 Miller Ave, and all his concerns. I think you know, I still have a concern. Can the board verify the exact size of that lot? I know they said it was 7,200 square feet. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's that big.
It really doesn't. I mean, if you go to take a look at that lot from our house, we're almost directly across the street from there. The lot really is not that big of a lot, and it does dip way down below where Jason's house is. And if you don't build up that house to the same level as what Jason has, all his privacy is going to be gone. I don't care how much fencing you put up, he's not going to have any privacy at all. And he's got young children as well, so I can see what his concern is.
Okay, first of all, the answer to your question is that lot is 60 by 120, 60 feet wide, 120 feet deep. When they build the house has to be high enough so that it is above the street level. So that means that the grades are such that the house will not be sitting down in the hole that you see there now.
Okay.
And that lot size
Okay. We can't hear you.
With other lots on the street.
We froze.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. That's about all we have to say.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes. So that was our only concern.
Okay. Okay, we have, last letter that I have is from the Shallots, who previously stated that they own the vacant lot, but now agree that they do not, and in fact are in favor of the application for variance. So the first communications we had was they were concerned that they thought they owned the lot. They now realize that they do not own the lot, and they are in favor of the development of the lot. Okay, I am going to close that portion of the hearing. I'm going to open it up for deliberations from the board. Couple of stipulations that we usually put on these is the driveway shall be as shown. The green space shall not be reduced. It shall remain as shown. Drainage shall be on site, shall not further exacerbate any current runoff. And we heard about a fence on both sides. And it's going to be a house that has a walkout basement. And I believe the appropriate course of action for the board is to grant a variance rather than get into whether this is a legal lot or not. So, anybody have anything to say?
Motion to grant?
With those stipulations?
Yes.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to grant with those stipulations. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Lanus. Mr. Lanus.
He looks frozen.
Mr. Pina.
Yes.
Mr. Bernard.
No.
Chief Williams. Chairman Galligan.
Yes. No. Mr. Bernard voted no. So I have 4-1.
4-1.
Not here.
Okay, the vote was 4 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The petition is granted.
Thank you.
How's that? The next petition is 2066, the petition of Genco LLC, 1014 Pearl Street, Brockton, Mass, for permission to erect an LED message board sign at J&M Pet Resort in an I-1 zone located at 1014 Pearl Street.
Good evening, esteemed zoning board members. Thank you for, I'm watching this meeting and I'm thinking to myself, thank you to all of you guys and women and everyone who's there for holding these meetings during such challenging times. It gives new meaning to the Zoom. Tomorrow when my team members are complaining about Zoom meetings, I'm gonna make them watch this. So thank you very much for having me and thank you for holding these meetings. It means a lot to business owners like myself. My name's Jenny Mather, and I own J&M Pet Resort and Pet Vet Clinic. The realty company is Gen Geo, and that is technically who is making the petition. I am the owner of that as well. And my goal here tonight is to come and ask for permission to erect a digital sign here at the location. We have been under construction for almost 18 months, expanding our current location. And it's been some trying times. And I'd like to give you a little bit of history about me and the evolution. I'll keep it short. I will not make it long. I do have a little fun fact. In the move and in the construction, I actually found the very first time I went to zoning. I'm going to frame this. This is my little tiny drawing, 1,700 square feet on West Chestnut Street in 2000. I started my business here in 1998. People thought I was literally crazy. I say it often because, you know, a doggy daycare didn't exist then, and the city has been very good to me. I actually was, I was schooled by a lot of people and telling me that I shouldn't open a business here. And at every turn, the naysayers have been proven wrong. So in 1998, I opened my business. It was JM Canine Training at the time. I was on West Chestnut Street. The Bertorellis were kind enough to allow me to use building. Things went very well there. Fast forward to 2009, which was considered then the Depression. Best Friends down the street from me went out of business. We put an offer on that building, and again, we had to go through zoning and things like that. We took that building and we made it beautiful. And at the time when I walked into the building, it was 10,000 feet, and I thought, we are never going to fill this up. I came from 1,700 square feet with just myself. And by the time we had moved into Best Friends, we had 35 employees. Now, fast forward to the present time and the current economic time that we're in with COVID. And I think that it has to be said that even still during these challenging times, the community has supported us in such a way, even during construction, that I currently have 73 employed people that either live in Brockton or the neighboring towns. We believe in community here. We give back. You'd be hard pressed to find a fundraiser that we're not somehow involved in. And I believe in community because this community has given to us. We now have 3 trademarks that I'm very proud to call our own. We have Play Train, which is a unique doggy daycare model, which basically is training and play, and everyone goes home better off than they came in. We also have Health for Pets, which is our newest trademark, and it speaks to our JM Pet Vet Clinic. And we have 360 degrees of happy health, which is the newest to us. And that is the all-encompassing. I know you got my packet. I tend to like to do visuals. In the packet, the 360 degrees of happy health shows all of the services that we provide. And I like to say that it proves that you can have it all, you can serve it all, you can do it all for your clients. What we give back to the community is basically being able to support pet parents and their pets through all ages and stages of their lives. We do this with an emotional connection with all of our clients. And many of these people were on 3rd and 4th generations of animals. Also, somewhere in the interim of that, I was the founder and director of the Blue Dog Shelter. I was very proud to do that. It gave me a lot of feel good for a lot of years, 17 years I had it. When I opened the clinic, I needed to choose 3 kids, big business, lots of employees. I needed to figure out where I was going to make my best difference. And I really feel that the way we make our best difference is by supporting all the pet parents in the community by giving added value and attainable services to everybody. I would never say we're cheap, but we're definitely not expensive. We're affordable and we can support them at all times. And I truly feel that we do that in every single aspect of what we do, which is why when we first started the clinic, I started in an RV that we parked in the parking lot so that I could pass on savings to the clients. I feel very passionately about that. Now, here we are 4 years later, and we had the need because of the overwhelming support of the community and the city that the clinic grew and grew even through the pandemic. One of the things that I'd like to note is that we worked only within the confines of what the law allowed, but we did stay open to the public and we did it in a safe way, and that we made everything curbside. We still have kept it that way. Which brings me to this point. I understand that we need to ask permission for digital signs. I understand, in Brockton, even in listening to this meeting, there's a lot of different areas and a lot of different businesses that are adjacent to homes. In fact, my first location, I was adjacent to homes, and I was constantly doing damage control with the homes that were across the street from me because of the noise. Here, my neighbors have been very good to me. I am right next to the Cohasset Cemetery, and we try to be very good to them as well. Lorraine has me on speed dial. She is the secretary over at Cohasset, and that she texts me anytime there is ever a service, and this can be verified, and we pull in any barkers and any animals on that side of the building out of respect for our neighbors. We would continue that process of having respect for our neighbors by making sure that whatever digital sign that we put out there, which you can see the drawing in your packets, follows all of the rules that are put in front of us, which I have read and I understand to be 10 feet off of the street, and making sure that we only have changes of screen every 10 seconds. We have all the technology to be able to do that. Some people might say, or the argument, I want to cut this off. Some people may say, I'm a successful business and my parking lot is always busy. This is true. We are a successful business, but we're a successful business because we think ahead and we think outside of the box. And I make sure that I have payroll for my 73 employees every single week. And the only way that I can do that is to make sure that we can sell things and to provide services to our clients. I also would urge you to understand that even though our parking lot has been overflowing for the last year, we also have been under construction with a lot of different things in the parking lot that don't belong there, like construction trailers and a modular trailer for the clinic. And my veterinary clinic, that's the big bus that's going to be sold. So as soon as those cars pull out of here, it's not going to look as busy, because I do realize the perception can be that because our parking lot is always going, why would we need a digital sign? Well, we don't know what the future is going to hold with COVID, but what I can tell you is this: I'm not ready to open my doors because what we're doing is working. We have not had any sick employees, and we have had perfect contact with our clients and kept good boundaries. What I make up about this situation is that this is not going away very soon. And so I need the public to know what is being sold inside of my store and inside of our building, so that we can continue to be successful, so that we can continue to contribute to the city and to the employees and all of the clients like we have.
Okay, let me just interject.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me all right?
I can
All
hear
right. Let's get right to the sign itself. I appreciate all of the things that you have told us about the business. Personally, I go by there all the time. I see you're busy all the time, which is great. The sign that you want to put outside, as you know, has to have a 10-foot setback.
Yes, sir.
And the section of the zoning that you referenced on your application, 2773, has to do with electronic message boards such as we see along Route 24. The section you're going to be requesting is an accessory sign, which is 2765, and that sign is a sign that goes with your business. So that's what we will be discussing tonight, a
Yes,
digital sign that will advertise your business. Okay. All right, so have you got anything else to say about the sign? You're good.
I think it's all in my packet. I would just welcome any questions that you have. Scott is there from Holmgren. He's also a neighbor of ours. He's been very good to us. And I just wanted to make, obviously, I'm doing the best I can with this presentation, but this is not in my everyday wheelhouse. So if you have questions about the property, he's there to answer them as well.
All right, let's defer to Scott. Let's see what he has to say.
Just about everything.
The microphone's up. Okay. You just want to say it loud.
Yep. I think Jenny did everything, Mr. Chairman. The only real issue that we would have is making sure that we have the 10-foot setback from Pearl Street, which we do. We have the sign poles at 11 feet. Otherwise, it's within the landscaped area, outside of the travelways. From our point of view, everything fits fine on the site.
Okay, so you realize this is a request for a special permit, and you're familiar with all of the requirements for these signs, so you can advise her on that.
Yeah.
With a no animation, scrolling, and also the current standard in the industry of the intensity of the lighting. In other words, it's brighter during the day, duller at night. And the sign company that's going to be handling this should be well aware of all that. Okay, good. All right, so are you all set for your presentation?
I am. Sign Design actually is doing the sign, and it does have the ambient light, and it does have the adjustment from night to day, everything that you mentioned.
And the sign can only be on at certain hours according to the code. And if you're closed at midnight, the sign should not be on. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. All right, I am now to the board. Is there any comments from the board? Everybody's good? All right, I'm going to close that portion. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor? Nobody on TV? Okay, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. I am going to, that's the next one. I'm going to open it up now for discussion from the board. Board members, any comments? If,
Thank you
What was
very much. The presentation I thought was very, very helpful and very interesting, and congratulations on the success of your business. What are your hours of operation?
So currently COVID hours are a little bit different, that we're open 6:30 in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday. Saturdays, we are open from 9 to 5, and Sundays we're closed, but we are here to take care of the animals to the public. Normal business hours, which we have done really for as long as I can remember, is 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. I do hope to get back to that at some point. And that's for the convenience of the people, what they need for their pets.
So at no time, during the year do you anticipate the sign to be illuminated beyond 9 p.m. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9 p.m. is when we would close. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
okay, I would make a suggestion, if any board member wants to make a motion, that we make the motion with the stipulations that we traditionally put with LED signs.
Motion to grant with the usual stipulations?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to grant with the usual stipulations for LED signs, which I had enumerated earlier. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Lanus,
Yes.
Mr. Bernard,
Yes.
Mr. Pina,
Yes.
Chief Williams, Chairman Galligan,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that's a 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Okay, the vote is 5 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The petition is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, the last petition of the evening, number 20-67, the petition of Ernesto Montero. Can you hear me all right? We're doing okay? Ernesto Montero, 21 Union Street, Brockton, Mass, for a variance from section 2727 and 2712 to have plot 10 as an independent buildable lot meeting dimensional requirements and has been merged with plot 9, which was under common ownership and considered by the city as one plot, and would now like it to revert back to its own in an R3 zone located 21 Union Street. Attorney.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Philip Nazrelli representing Mr. Montero. As Chairman stated, the contention here is this evening, or the application is to take 21 Union Street and have it divided into 2 lots. However, my contention is that it has always been 2 lots, never did merge into 1 lot, and it should be classified as such. In fact, Mr. Ferry had appeared before the planning board, and they successfully acknowledged and granted the status of 2 lots with the dimensions as a buildable lot, which would not require any setback or front yard requirements, no relief at all. I suggest to the board that there are a couple of different pathways which one could follow and arrive at the conclusion that there are 2 lots here, or it should be considered as 2 lots. First of all, in Massachusetts, in order for lots to merge, it's only one of 2 ways. One is by operation of law, which means that without the landowner doing anything, the lots will come together. For instance, you have 2 vacant lots that are non-conforming. They will merge together if they're under common ownership to create a conforming lot. throughout most of Massachusetts, you have 2 lots in common ownership with one on a house and one's vacant, they will merge into one. However, Brockton had made the exception to that under Chapter 27, Section 12, whereby it protected the integrity of the undersized lot from merging into the lot with the structure on it, and providing there was certain dimensional items satisfied, 50-foot frontage, area lot size 5,000 square feet, it won't merge, which meant that Brockton gave great priority to the integrity of an adjoining lot. In this instance, I had done a title examination to find out how we got to the point where it was considered merged. And I went back 80 years until 1941, when an individual named Mr. Venti purchased Lot 9. 1943, he purchased Lot 10. So they were purchased at different times as 2 obviously separate and individual lots. He held the property for about 10 years, and in 1953, he conveyed the lot to a Mr. and Mrs. Tansey. And at the time they conveyed the lot, he described it as lots 9 and 10. Now, at that time, and even up until present, when the assessor gets a new deed, they make a determination as to whether or not it's, and they see multiple lots, to facilitate the taxation. The property owner appears before the assessor's office and will request for the purposes of paying to have one tax bill. However, we can't really determine who asked what, but in any respect, lots don't merge by signing a 3x5 index card. Again, if it's not by an affirmative, by operation of law, it's got to be by affirmative action written and stated into the deed. Now, land use lawyers look at deeds as sacred instruments, almost like a will. They're witnessed, they're notarized, and they're specifically stated what the intentions are in conveying one parcel to another person. And not to make light, but people are born and they die. Property lives on forever. That 21 Union Street will be here for 1,000 years. So there's a great deal of sanctuary activity that takes place when we convey property. So I submit to the board that Lot 10, the subject lot herein, does not need relief in the sense that it is of equal size to the lot with the house on it, the adjoining lot. It's comparable to all the lots in the area, and it has always remained as a separate lot because there's no evidence that it ever merged, other than the 3x5 index card that is in the assessor's office. Now, the second pathway, I mentioned there were a couple of pathways. The second pathway is under Chapter 48, Section 10, whereby the board, if it wish, and if it takes a purist attitude, could enter a variance on the property. The basis for the variance is that, as you know, in order under Chapter 48 to have a variance, there has to be a hardship emanating from the land, either soil conditions, topography, or shape. And the legislature has added the component of a financial hardship. Now, the financial hardship isn't a hardship, financial hardship that came from the shortcomings of the landowner or he made a bad deal. It's related to the land. In this instance, the board could look at it that the property owner at 21 Union Street had 2 parcels of land. He was paying full price in taxes for one parcel and full for the second. At some point they merged and he was paying one tax bill, but presumably for 2 parcels, but yet he only could use one parcel. Too late for him to get an abatement because the statute already runs. You only have so much time to file an abatement. So he's stuck paying this tax bill on something that he's only going to use as one lot. So I think there are credible basis for the board, if it wished, to enter a variance granting him the division of the property. And it would be consistent with the plan that the planning board has already granted and ruled upon. So either way, members of the board, I think you have 2 viable options to deem this as a separate lot. Again, and to repeat myself, the first way is to take the position that it never merged because there's no evidence anywhere in the 80 years of deeds I looked at that it merged or was intended to merge. Every deed always referred to it as lots 9 and lots 10 as separate lots. And it would not merge by operation of law. And I suggest it can't merge by an assessor's record. They don't put properties together, nor do they separate them. It has to be by a specific action done by way of the deed. So the relief we asked for, again, and by the way, if it was a variance you chose, this lot certainly doesn't derogate from the intent of the zoning ordinance whereby it matches everything else that's there. And it's a part and parcel of that general district that it lies in. So with that in mind, unless there are any questions, I would respectfully request that the board grant this as lot 10 a buildable lot.
Very good. All right, I researched several of the deeds myself, and this is a very similar situation we had in the where the deed referenced different lots, and the court decided that it was the deed that was the all-encompassing nets and bounds that determined what it was. So when I go back to 1954, Lot 9 Union Street was enlarged by merging with Lot 10 Union Street. It's in 1954. Now, in 1953, there was a sale, and it describes nets and bounds of both properties. Another one in 1983 describes the same nets and bounds. 1987, same nets and bounds. So the way I look at this is the fact that the premise that we have been working on as a board is the decision that if the deed references encompassing nets and bounds, it's one lot. So I think the proper way to look at this is to request for a variance that it was two separate lots years ago, but when it merged and the deeds that have been transpiring here, they have all referenced the outside nets and bounds. So.
Well, I agree. That's a reasonable way. That's why I said that's for the purists to look at. My first version was you had to take a couple of leaps and you had to argue the fact that it shows 9 and 10, even though you have a general running description. But the variance, I think, is very strong and credible, and there's a basis for it. And I think it's the equitable thing to do based upon the past use all those years from the 1800s until 1953, 54. It was always considered two separate lots. It looks like two separate lots of equal dimension and size. In fact, the one in question is a little bit larger than the one that already has the house on. So I would submit the board would grant it by way of the variance.
And I'm correct in the determination of a lot next to a house that's a vacant lot. State law reads a little different than what Brockton. The state is a little bit more specific.
About 90% of the communities in Massachusetts go with the state, and Brockton and about 7 or 8 others have the exception that they don't merge, which is a very liberal way, and the municipality is allowed to give it a more liberal view than the state is. They did.
So you will people know that very well.
I do.
All right. So questions from the board? Comments from the board? I would suggest that we look at this on a daily basis. Try to make this as clean as we possibly Close that portion of the hearing if there's nobody on the board. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor? All right, now can you hear me? Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor? Anybody on the screen? Nobody. All right, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition? Nobody. I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. Is there any city official that wants to speak on the issue? Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of the hearing. I am now going to open this hearing up for deliberation by the board. No, I'm not. Hold on just a minute. Before I do that, I have a letter from Mr. Pelagi from the Planning Board. Preliminary plan, 21 Union Street, 2 proposed lots. Dear Mr. Zioli, at the Planning Board meeting held on September 2nd, 2020, the board discussed the above named preliminary subdivision plan dated 6/5/20 by J.K. Holmgren Engineering on behalf of Joseph Tavares. The board voted to allow the plan to proceed to file for the necessary relief with the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is no way to be considered an approval by the Planning Board. If relief is granted by the ZBA, the applicant must move forward to the definitive application stage in the public hearing process. At that time, the issues of drainage, stormwater management, utilities, etc., will be formally discussed. Very truly yours, Robert Pelagi. Okay, now I will open it up for discussion from board members.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Pina.
I think this lot, as the attorney Nasrallah said, I mean, it fits within the neighborhood. It doesn't, subdividing wouldn't derogate from the neighborhood. Most of the lots on this street are small, on the small side anyway. I don't see any reason not to approve this.
Very good, thank you. Any other board members? Entertain a motion.
Motion to grant.
Motion has been made to grant. I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Bernard seconds. Motion's been made and seconded to grant. All those in, nope, I'm not going to say that either. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bernard,
Yes.
Mr. Lannis,
Yes.
Mr. Pina,
Yes.
Chief Williams,
Yes.
Chairman Galligan.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that's a 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
The vote is 5 in the affirmative, nobody in the negative. The petition is granted. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for participating tonight.